Okay, now this video, this is our second video talking about the burs and the finish lines, concentrating on the how do we create the finish line using these burs. Now, we said that the burs have different shapes of tips. So we have the shoulder tip of the bear, we have those that have rounded end, and those that are like a chamfer, so they're like a triangle, okay? You feel that the tip is like a triangle. Okay, these are three shapes of the end of the bear. Now, when I want to create a shoulder, we use the shoulder shape to create the shoulder, okay, tip. But can I create a shoulder using this? Yes, I can. If I go inwards, so suppose this is the tooth surface, I come in with a round bear, I go deeper, what will I get? I'll get this shoulder and I'll get it here rounded. It's not like a sharp angle, but it's rounded. So this bear produces this morphology. The round bear produces a shoulder, then a rounded area. But there is a risk with this shoulder that it might go deeper here and you create a ledge. So there should not be any ledges lateral to the axial one, okay? What if I use this bear to create a shoulder? If I'm using this chamfer bear to create a shoulder, this is the tooth at the beginning. I come in with the chamfer, it will create this shape. Then I go deeper, and the shoulder at the end will have this shape. Okay, but once more, the same risk is present here, that if I go deeper here, I will have a ledge on the tooth. So using the bear, you should be careful that this bear is creating the shoulder effect with going in consistently on the same line without any interruption of the area, and you reach the exact depth. Okay, so this is the second issue, which bear is to produce a shoulder. If I'm using a chamfer, I can do a chamfer with this, I could do a chamfer with this, and I can do a chamfer with this. How? Simply, if I go here, this is the original surface of the tooth. If I go with this shoulder just half the way, what will I create? I'll create a step, and that step in depth is around 0.5, and it's enough. It's a chamfer. Even if I'm using this bear, I call it chamfer preparation. I'm describing the preparation. I call it a chamfer preparation because I went in minimally. It's only 0.5, up to 1 millimeter is my chamfer. If I use the round bear, this is the surface. I go in half the way with the round bear, I'll get the chamfer better with a rounded shape at the end. If I use the chamfer bear to create a chamfer, if I go in half the way, I will get this shape of the finish line of the chamfer. But because the amount of reduction here and here and here is minimal, I call it a chamfer. So the chamfer preparation is according to the axial reduction, not the shape of the tip of the bear. Okay? Now, the last thing I want to talk about, how do I control my preparation depth? I want to do either a chamfer or do, for example, a shoulder. So our definition of a shoulder is any preparation, I'm going to define it as any preparation beyond 1 millimeter or over. Okay? I'm going to define a chamfer as 0.5 only. And why did we choose the 0.5? Because this is what's detectable by the technician. If the technician wants to see this edge and feel it as a step on the tooth, so to know where to place his crown, he needs a step. So the minimal step you can create that can be visually detected by the technician on cast is 0.5 millimeter. So when I'll call it a shoulder when it's 1 millimeter or more, depending on the material, and the maximum is 1.5. Okay. Now, how am I going to gauge this clinically? The easiest way is to know the thickness of your bear. So once more, if I want to create this or this, I could use any of these bears, by the way. So first of all, I could use any of the bears. Second, I need to gauge how much I'm going in. So I'm going in. We first begin with the coarse. I could use the black first and then use the green. Some people go to the green immediately. And I begin preparing. But once I want to prepare, I need to know the thickness of this bear. So I always ask my students to gauge the bear. So I gauge the bear. This is the crown gauge. Okay? The tip of it is around how much? It's 1 millimeter. So if I prepare with this bear, it goes into the tooth. That means if I'm putting this and I created a shoulder with this bear, I'm not magnifying the shoulder, I'm making it minimum. But if the total bear is inside the preparation, that means I have created 1 millimeter enough as a finish line. If I want 1.5, I use a thicker bear. See this? This is more thick. So if I want to make sure that I'm going into the correct thickness, gauge your bear But then later on you will have the experience, you will know the bears by vision. But see, this is 1.5. So if I'm using this bear tooth to create the shoulder and all of it is inside the tooth, that means I'm in 1.5. Okay, so the bear itself can gauge. But I prefer, if you're a student and you're working, you haven't not enough experience with the 1 millimeter bear, go and do your finish line, and then go to the actual depth using more smooth bears, using the yellow coral or red color bears that have a shoulder morphology. Okay, so you create the initial depth, you finalize it, you know where the level of the gingival margin is, the shape of the tooth with the gingival margin, is it subgingival, supragingival, and so on. Once you're final, you go with the smoother bear and create more depth axial. Okay, so this bear is 1 millimeter, this is 1.5, while this bear is how much? If I want to do a groove, for example, I want to create a groove, I want to create a pin. See how much is this? This is only 0.5 at the tip. So I know if I'm going to, for example, my preparation, I have a lot of dentine broken, and I want to place a pin. So I could use this bear for preparation. So the idea is, use the gauge your bears, know your bears. In the initial preparation, do the preparation except the last 0.5. Do the last 0.5 using the correct bear. Okay, and then gauge your bear accordingly. If I'm going to use this preparation, okay, so I want to go 1 millimeter, I change bears. If you want this morphology at the angle, use the rounded end tip. If you want this morphology, use the chamfer. If you want this morphology, use the shoulder end bear. The 0.5, I could use once more all of these bears. But once more, because I want to only create 0.5, I either from the beginning choose a bear that is 0.5 at the tip. So is this a 0.5? No, this is a 1 millimeter. I'll choose something thin. This is thinner. Let me see if this is a 0.5. Okay. At the tip, it's a 0.9 or 8. So I use thinner bears, and I know this is a 0.8, so I don't go all the depth in it. I simply leave part of it. So let me magnify this. I only want to go 0.5, and the bear is more than 0.5, so I leave part of the bear outside. So maybe 2/3 of the bear is working, and this is a 0.5. Then I come with my prop. Do I feel a step? It's enough? Then I satisfy myself with this. So I created the chamfer. So this is how we use the bears to gauge our preparation. So I've done this initial preparation with a bear that's gauged 0.8, for example, and I leave part of the bear outside. And then when I come to finish, I bring the yellow bear also with the same taper, and it's 0.5 at the end, and I polish and make sure that my minimal preparation, 0.5 preparation, is smooth as well. Okay, so this is how we create. Now the last thing I want to say is about the morphology of the gingival part of the shoulder. Okay, this is the shoulder as we know it. Now because the shoulder, we're going deep, that means the bear is embedding in the tooth structure. So what are the problems? Sometimes we have this upright, 90 degrees. This is not correct in terms of enamel prisms at the end. It's preferable that they are run with enamel prisms, so it comes like a degree. It's not 90 degrees, it's like 100 degrees. Okay, it's a bit tilted. So how do I create that? By tilting the bear outside. At the edge, I tilt it outside, but at the axial wall, I keep the taper. So don't tilt to the outside while you're close to the axial wall. If you do that, you will create undercuts in the axial wall. So don't tilt the bear here, tilt it more towards the edge. So you will create this downward slope of the finish line. My second problem is that sometimes it's rough. Where does the roughness come? You're using a small bear with a large shoulder, so it comes deeper here, shallower here, deeper here. You're not consistent with your motion. Okay? So make sure when you finish with the bear that is wide enough and it has a flat end at which will finish this. If I want to create the round shape, as I said, at the end, the last 0.5 millimeter at the finishing step, because we said we created this as 1 and we want to add a bit 1.5. During the finishing step, use the rounded end bear as for finishing. If you want this shape of the morphology of this, you come in with the chamfer at the last 0.5 as finishing. Sometimes you need to create a bevel here. Any bear will satisfy. You're going to use the side of the bear And simply, once you finish the sharp angle here, you just slope with the bevel and create a very small bevel at the end. This also removes the overhanging enamel prisms. If this is 90 degrees, it removes the overhanging enamel and also creates like a ledge. This ledge will help overcome any shrinkage in the, it will keep the gingival seal of the crown, even if some shrinkage happens in the crown material during sintering or during firing. Okay, this was our video on how to create shoulders. Thank you.